If development risks making the community unable to see themselves as coherent people, I don't think that is a very worthy to pursue development, and that's why proposition solves the problem. But okay, firstly, several points of setup. Firstly, on the terms of indigenous society, I think what makes Kairan communities here being meaningful as an actor is that uh, they depends on the rumah adat system, where it becomes their primary structure through which their own life are organized, right? So they are not only having culture as a part of their life, their panels, but they're already living their life off of their own culture. This creates two implications. A, this means that they are dependent on the cultural inheritance as a form of identity, where they feel this sense of safety and the sense of belonging as a person. But also B, they have a different kind of rationale then attached to what modern people in the society or the government, their own government actually has like rationality, because their understanding of a good life, their understanding of being a rational man is not about speed, it's not about progress, it's not about advancements, but more about community and more about communal responsibilities and social things, right? So what does this implications has to do with? Secondly, the government. Well, simple. The government wants their country to be developed, right? They want to advance their own state to become very thrivable in the modern world where like competitions happens everywhere. So this means that they will accelerate full development, and one of the very effective way they will do this is that they will integrate marginalized areas into more advanced plans. But then beside of this, the government also has the obligation that they govern in ways that preserves dignity and stability of their own people. They will destroy the social contract, not only when the people are poor, but especially when they strip away the fabric of identity that already makes these peoples as peoples in the society that is already exists within the states, right? So thirdly, the status quo becomes problematic because government does not only introduce modernizations and progress to to the Kairan indigenous society, but also replacing away the fabric of identity that makes Kairan's people Kairans. In the course of creating a more advanced, the government seems to risk stripping away people's identity, and that's what we are avoiding for. So, what is the mechanism in our side of the house to uh, oppose this? Well, obviously, we will preserve all the rumah adat systems and all of its hierarchy and details, right? We will preserve collective land ownership, for example. We still maintain the authority of the elder councils to create major decisions, but also we have like mandatory cultural apprenticeships for all the youngsters in the Kairans, right? But not being into utopian like option, we still provide as a state, we still be responsible to provide healthcare, infrastructure, education, even economic opportunities to these people. We're just not pushing them to the fact that we simply want this country to be better. Okay, so with that in mind, I'm going to explain to you firstly why is this proposal urgent, and secondly how is it justified principally, right? So, firstly, why is it urgent? The government's proposal of progress does not only strips away the identity, but further restructure the way that Kairan's people live their panels. They restructure what it means to live. They restructure the meaning of how these people are going to relate with the world or other people. So instead of communal responsibility, the government replaces it with individual land ownership. Instead of having like the apprenticeship teaching how the young generations have to understand their own responsibility as a Kairan, they replace it with being very individualistic and like selfish to your own way, right? Why is it dangerous? This shift of their primary attachment from these communal responsibilities to individual identity is extremely difficult to reverse. This because these identity systems, especially these culture based, can only survive when they are continuously reproduced. That is, if they're not reproduced continuously, they will become symbolic and even reduced to aesthetic heritage, as many cultures are having like undergo right now, right? Um, so, however small the collapse is happening, however slow the collapse is happening, and even if it's certain is happening, the irreversibility is enormous and happens very quickly if we do not preserve this cultural. The deeper harm is that the current people stop seeing themselves as people of shared civilization, right? They instead isolate themselves into this point of view of competing modernically with all other peoples in a capitalistic society. The real world example is see how Native American and Aborigine communities they already underwent language extinction and even fragmentation in the society that forces them to assimilate with the modern people and with all of the tourists that like come and integrate with their society, right? And we do not want Kairan communities to underwent the same tragedy right there. How? Well, simple. Our mechanism will ensure that modernization still exists, but through cultural continuity rather than replacing what is being their culture, right? So even if they want still preserve the Rumah that system, we still have like a better education, we still have like a better job opportunities. It's not just like we're pushing them too far. The simple analogy is Indonesia, dear panels. See how Indonesia, with all of its attempt, all of its plans to, for example, like flourish their country to become more and more civilized, more and more urban. There's still like Badui forest with Badui people who still maintain their own local community and local wisdom, right? And we do not like kind of trying to erase that eventually. And we still become the Indonesia that everyone knows. So how do you weigh this argument? For the government side of the house, we have the best case that we create a sustainable modernization. That is, we continue to have like integrate them in like phases or like progressively without erasing what makes them meaning what they have as their understanding of being a coherent people. Why is this exclusive in our side? This is exclusive in our side because only governments side of the house care about and realize the fact that the culture of Kairan's people is simply not resistant. Even if some young Kairans prefer urban education or modern careers, preserving the Rumah Adat still matters because it ensures that departure remains a conscious choice rather than like result of, for example, forces from the government, right? So that's why you should bow the argument. But also secondly, why is it justified? Why preservation is justified even if integration can create prosperity and necessary for like the betterment of like human's life, right? Well, the opposition's mistake is assuming that the fact that you have prosperity, you can automatically replace this identity. That is the fact that when you create a system that allows these people to like thrive economically, you can simply like strip away their own cultural attachment or their own cultural identity, which is what is happening in the modern society, right? Well, what we will show you to what we will tell to you panels is that humans do not merely want to survive economically only. They want to know who they are, they want to know where they live as a society and why even their lives matter. Because if not, then you don't have like this motivation or this kind of like entrenchment to how you will survive as a person, right? Rumah Adat system possesses these things, but by not preserving those systems, I think it will only risk collapsing these people into the identity or existential crisis that modern people already underwent. So instead of creating a more rational, more motivational, integrated society where your state is kind of like thriving off, you're just making people become less and less mentally unstable, and that's what we are avoiding, and that's why you should buy proposition. Thank you.